Hey guys, it's time for another Allan Holdsworth lesson video. Today I think I'm going to do a pretty simple one, non-brewed condiment. I think the song is actually relatively easy. I want to start doing some of the simpler songs. The form in this might be a little awkward, but there's a lot of repetition in this song, so I don't really think it's going to be really too painful, and a lot of the chords aren't even physically that strange. So let me talk about the song for a little bit. This was, I think, the first song that Allan wrote tuned in fifths using the syntax, but then he had adapted this to standard tuning, but he had actually removed a couple of the bass notes for whatever reason. Some of them fall outside the range of the guitar, others I guess it's maybe just too physically weird, but in the last section of this video I'll actually show you a section where you can actually play it the exact way that's, I guess, on the record, or how Steve Hunt is actually playing it, because I think he did, well, he did most of the keys live for it. But he doesn't, for whatever reason, Allan doesn't play the bass note there. But this video is really going to focus on the way that Allan's actually playing it, just to give you an idea what's going on and maybe even how he thinks of stuff. So, also, if you want a good transcription of this, my friend Joe Britton did an excellent job, and it's also on the Unreal Allan Holdsworth Facebook group where people upload their transcriptions for free and you can download them, and I'd say Joe is probably the best, way better than me. So he did this if you want to look at it. It's in standard notation, but this is going to focus more on the chords and stuff like that. And I'm not going to do the intro lead part in the head because everyone does that. A lot of videos are really good, some are completely accurate, but my focus is really on the chords. Maybe I'll do a video on that later if people really want it, but that's not, for me, that's not really a concern, and it's relatively easy to figure out. I think the chord stuff is much harder, and that's like what interests me. So, alright, we'll get started with the head. So even though this song was originally tuned in fifths with the syntax and played tuned in fifths, and even on the double neck, like how Allan played Sphere of Innocence, he had a double neck, one in fifths tuning and one in standard for soloing. He'd use the fifths neck to play Sphere of Innocence and Non-Brewed Condiment, this song, and Looking Glass. And then eventually, I guess he said, I could just switch this to standard tuning. And for whatever reason, he never did Sphere of Innocence, which I think he could have if he wanted to, using the same treatment where you just remove some of the bass notes and either have the bass play it or have the keyboards fill that part in. So this is the intro section. The first chord of the song is this F6 sus4 chord. You have your root, 1, 5, your sus4, and your 6. You can also think of this as a B flat major add 9, because you have a B flat, you have your 1, your major third, your perfect fifth, and then you have your 9 there, if you want to voice it that way. But I think it makes more sense to call this F6 sus4. This is also the same chord, same voice chord that you'll see in the un-merry-go-round. Instead of, let's say, playing it in F, if we do it in F sharp, if you just take the 6 and you bring it down to the D string, you have this chord, which I like to think of as a add 9 because it makes more sense to me, with the root being on the B string. I'm sorry, it's the B on the G string. But anyway, that's the first chord of the song. And then the next chord he moves up to this D minor 7, which might not be obvious because it's basically in second inversion. You have the fifth of the chord as the lowest note. But if you move that an octave up to here, you have plain old D minor 7. But he's just using the E, A, G, and B strings for this. And then it goes to B flat 6 sus4, the same exact chord as in the beginning. Now this is the section that I'm going to go at the end of the video and sort of do an alternate version of, where it's including the bass note. Now I think I read somewhere or heard that Allan said that the fifth of each one of these chords the bass is playing. It's not really, I don't know if I'm not sure exactly what he meant by it. In this case, pretty much the major third of every chord is being played in the bass, but he removed it. So you're just going to have to take my word for this. But this is how he's playing it. The first chord is actually a E flat major 7. Now on the record, you have a D in the bass here. And that's what I'm going to show later. But for whatever reason, he removes it and just plays, they're all 4-note chords. He plays the top 3 notes of each one of these chords and just removes the lowest voice. So the beginning part of this section is B flat major 7 to E flat major 7. That happens again. Then this sort of strange chord. The best way to think of this is an A flat major 7 sharp 11, because you have an A, you have your sharp 11, and then major 7. And as I said, the bass here is, or the lowest note is actually playing the major third of this chord, which Allan omitted, which I'll talk about in the next section. So A flat major 7 sharp 11, then D flat major 7 sharp 11. It's the same actual voicing, but now you're playing it on the top 3 strings. This is where it's a little bit different. Allan ends up playing this, I guess it's like an A power chord, but the D's in the bass actually here. So I would actually consider this the upper part of a D sus2 chord. But here it's just A, E, and another A. And then this also, where he's playing a D tritone. D, A flat, and then another D. Once again, this is a add sharp 11 chord because the bass is being removed, or if you want to think of it as like a major flat 5. But anytime I see a major third with a flat 5, or it's automatically a sharp 4 to me, or sharp 11. So it makes sense to me. So you have a D tritone here. So that beginning section is. Then, instead of playing B flat major 7, this all these chords are now are major 7 sharp 11s. So instead of playing B flat major 7, plays B flat major 7 sharp 11, and then E flat major 7 sharp 11, A flat major 7 sharp 11, D flat major 7 sharp 11. You move all the way up to G flat major 7 sharp 11, and then repeat again. So that whole section sounds like this. And that's happens every time that lead section happens, in the middle of the song, at the end of the song. That's always what's going on. And now it's time for the actual meat of the song, which is the solo section, which I'll tackle here. In this section, Allan once again removes the bass note for basically every chord except for one. So the chords that I'm going to name it are not exactly the chords that are the overall harmony that's what's going on. They're just the chords that make sense on the guitar. I will talk about that when the song is, well, when I finish this section. I'll talk about what the actual harmony is, what the bass notes are that are being removed. So the first chord that Allan plays is a D sus2. The D, A, and then you have your E. And then it goes to, this is the only 4-note chord that he really plays. It's a D major 7 in first inversion. It's kind of an interesting voicing that he uses a lot. This is the same kind of chord. It's probably no, I won't be able to play it. But he uses this one actually quite frequently. So we've got this D sus2 to this D major 7. And then it's that same motif now. I believe it's a 5th down. No, sorry, it's not a 5th down. It's to now F sus2 to F major 7. But now instead of playing the major third is actually in the bottom, which is obviously you can't really play because the chord would actually be like this. So I think it's just a little too strange, you know, obviously to go through all these weird chords. So he, like I said, he just removes the lowest voice. So D sus2 to D major 7 to F sus2 to F major 7, major 7, yeah. And then back, it does the same exact part as before, but now an octave lower. D sus2 to D major 7. And then the first repeat, you play C sus2. repeats exactly the same way, but now you just change the last chord. Whoops. Then you play an F sus2. That's the part that repeats over and over again. Now that happens 3 times. After 3 full repeats, including the 2 different endings. After that happens, it goes back to a variation of the intro section. So instead of playing F6 sus4, it's C6 sus4. Then after that, it goes to what am I looking at? A minor 7. It's a very unusual way, I wouldn't think about it, but it means the same chord as this. And then F6 sus4. Then all the way to E minor 7 in the second inversion. And just that there, it doesn't exactly take the same interval jump as before. If it was the same exact part, it should be here. But it's not. Allan goes to E instead of D instead. Then after that, it goes back to the F6 sus4, D minor 7, and then B flat 6 sus4. And that's that part. Then it repeats again. 2 times of this, 2 full times. That's 1 repeat. After that section, it goes back to the C6 sus4 section. Everything repeats exactly the same way again. And then the D sus2 part again. That happens twice, but the only difference, this is now the end of the solo where Allan's done, and live I think that would be 1 whole section, and then he would go to the keyboard player, and then they would solo over the same sort of section. So now instead of playing it 2 exact times of this, at the very end, you cut off the last F sus2 and go right to F6 sus4, and then the intro head gets played over again. So that's like the end of the improvisation part, and then you play the head again, and then that's it. That's the whole solo section. So now after this, I'm going to talk about the actual harmony that's going underneath those chords that Allan's actually not playing, and in some cases it's almost physically impossible to play it that same exact way, but it'll at least give you an idea if, let's say, you want to play this with a bass player, what the bass player could play, or what you can have the keyboards do. So in the solo sections, the notes that are being omitted are not really a perfect 5th down, but now for, let's say, the D sus4 section, you're actually playing an F. Obviously this is not really a very fun stretch to do, but the note on the lowest voice in this chord is an F. So instead of really calling this a D sus2 with the F in the bass, I would actually think of this as a major 13. Allan also uses the same exact chord in Sphere of Innocence right in the beginning of the solo section. It plays the same exact major 13 voicing. It's basically, if you're playing in 5th tuning, it looks exactly like an F major chord like this. But of course, if you're using 5ths, you have a 1, and then instead of a 5th, you now have a 6, and then you have a major 7, and then you have a, I guess your 13 up here. It's weird to do. I'm trying to do it in 5th tuning, but I know you have your major 7 up here. I don't know. Don't even pay attention to what I'm saying. But this is exactly how it's supposed to be played. You have a D sus2, but with an F in the bass. So I would consider this an F 13, F major 13. And then the same chord as before. It's the same exact voicing. It's D major 7 in first inversion, with the F sharp as the lowest note. Then once it goes to the second chord, the F sus2, it's the same thing again. So instead of having F as our bass note, it would be A. I'm sorry, A flat. And then the next chord would have A as the bass, and that's where you have the full major 7. Of course, you can just play that A up here if you want. This is a very common Allan voicing, but that's what's going there. I would actually consider this, instead of F sus2, I would consider this A flat major 13. And then F major 7. And then it's the same chord as before. Instead of this D sus2, you have F as the bass. So that's another F major 13 to a D major 7, but now you have F sharp as your bass. And then the next chord, the ending chord, he's playing this C sus2. The actual bass note is A flat, which is actually an octave down from what I'm playing, so it's out of the scope of the guitar, but if you wanted to play it, it would look like this. And A flat, I would consider really being the root here. You have another major 7 sharp 11. You have major 3rd, your major 7, and then your sharp 11. And that's even for the second chord, the second ending chord. Instead of an F sus2, it's actually D flat major 7 sharp 11. And that's really what's being omitted. The only difference now is at the very, 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 very end of the song, when everyone's done soloing, it repeats all the same way. But now instead of going up here to this D flat major 7 sharp 11, you're playing G flat major 7 sharp 11. Allan plays it 3 times, and then I think the last time's an octave up. And that's it. That's the entire song. A lot of repetition. It's very odd, the form of it, where you repeat the D sus2 section 3 times, and then you play the intro section, and then you improvise over 2 times, and then it's that intro section again, and then it's another 2 times, and then you go to the head again, and you cut off the last chord early. That's just typical Allan stuff, but as you can see, it's not many chords. It's a lot of repetition of the same voicings over and over again, except for the weird middle section in the intro. But I'm going to go over that section now and add the bass note, so not only can you actually understand the harmony, what's going on, but if you want to play it, this is an alternate way of playing it with the full chord in there. So this is not the way that Allan had actually played it, but when I was looking over the chords after I had transcribed it, I realized that you actually can play the bass note for that whole middle of the intro section if you wanted to. I think maybe Allan either didn't realize it or maybe thought it was a little too weird jumping all over the neck, but this is the way that it could be played. So the first chord that I said was B flat major 7. It is, but the root it's in first inversion, so not the root. I keep on saying that. I did that in the last video. The lowest note is actually the major 3rd. So in this case, it's actually D. So if you want, you could put the D on the E string, as it'd be much easier than trying to play it on the A string. So the first chord is a first inversion, B flat major 7. And then it goes to E flat major 7. So instead of trying to play it like this, you can just take that same chord shape and then move it down to E flat, and now G is your lowest note. So those are your first 2 chords: B flat major 7, E flat major 7. And then the next chord is a 4th up. It's a A flat major 7 sharp 11. But what's interesting is that you can use the same exact chord shape and move it down a group of strings. So now you have your major 3rd, root, sharp 11, and then your major 7. So that works out really well. So you can, for the first 3 chords, you can use the same exact voicing. Or I think you say same hand shape. And then it goes to D flat major 7 sharp 11, which you can just once again take the same chord and move it up here. This one is now where it gets to be strange, because I said you have this A power chord with the D in the bass. The best way to play that, instead of trying to do something weird like this, is to you can play a D power chord here, and then play the E and the A string up here, so you can actually play this D sus2 chord. So I'm just playing the A and the D string, and the B and the E string. And then the next chord, that D tritone with the F sharp in the bass, once again you get a weird, this isn't very hand friendly. You can utilize the open string, so instead of using this D on the 5th fret, you can play open D. So you have an F sharp in your bass, your major 3rd, D, your root, your sharp 11 as the 1st fret on the G, and then your D again on the B string. So you have that chord. So far we have this. I might not be able to play it perfectly, it's awkward. And then, yeah, it's a little strange. I mean, I also haven't really practiced this. I'm just trying to learn it so I can show it to you guys if you want to play it this way. When I'm playing it the Allan, because that makes the most sense to me. So after this weird D add a sharp 11 chord, then you have those major 7 sharp 11s again. So the first chord is B flat major 7 sharp 11. Instead of playing it up here, you can use that same voicing that we did before, but now play it here on the 3rd fret, with the root being on the G string on the 3rd fret. And now this is probably the weirdest chord, is that now you're going and playing a E flat major 7 sharp 11, and the only real easy way of playing it is like this. So you have the E flat, but now you have the major 3rd in the bass that, like I said, Allan's been omitting so far. You have the sharp 11 and the major 7. You get this. And then just like before, A flat major 7 sharp 11, D flat major 7 sharp 11, and then all the way up to G flat major 7 sharp 11, and then repeats again. It's as good as it's going to get. So that's an alternate way of playing it. And also I found it interesting that during that whole section he's actually moving down in fourths, you know, going from B flat to E flat to A flat to D flat to G flat. I wonder if Allan was thinking of something in particular, moving all those major 7 sharp 11s down a fourth. But I mean, he's not improvising over that. He's basically, that intro section I think is all D minor pentatonic. Diatonically, I don't think, or at least D minor, I don't think there's any altered notes or anything weird in there. But yeah, that's the form of the song. It's a little strange, but there's a lot of repetition. Once you get the hang of it, it's actually a pretty easy tune. So maybe you want to actually listen to how the song goes and get a feel of the form if you're not that familiar with it. I always felt that the trickiest parts of learning a song were not the chords itself, but all the weird nuances with repeats. It repeats 3 times, and then the next time it's 2 times. I always blank out with stuff like that. But yeah, that's the song. Thank you so much for watching and for all the support and all that good stuff. If you want, subscribe, you know, like, do that whole kind of thing, or don't. I don't mind. But I appreciate when I do get it. So thanks a lot, and hopefully I'll see you guys next week.